Okay, so there's free proprietary software, and then there's free and open source software. Proprietary software is owned by a company or an individual that usually has a pricing plan set up, and that includes a free version of their software. While free and open source software, short for FOSS, is community developed software with the source code available for anyone to customize, so it's completely free to use. And the list of tools I'm giving you will be a mixture of both, but I bring both of the terms up because it's a very important distinction to make. It's a matter of freedom and has nothing to do with price at all. And when it really matters, in my opinion, it's best to stick with free and open source software. But more on that at the very end. Here's my list of tools that I use to make my games. Okay, I'm gonna start this one off strong with Blender. Blender is a graphics tool that I use to create my low poly art, but the tool is capable of so much more. It's well documented, and I recommend the following resources. They're both on YouTube. One is Blender Guru. His tutorials are awesome for those of you who are wanting to get started with it. And then there's Blender Secrets, which is a great channel for quick, useful tips and tricks about Blender. Next is Inkscape. I learned to use the software through TJ Free's tutorial playlist on YouTube. It's a vector graphics tool that I use to create custom icons and sprites for my games. For those of you who own an iPad, Vectornator is a proprietary software that I used to use because I could work on my iPad, and that's always nice. And then there's also Canva, which is another proprietary software. But Canva for me is more so a complementary tool for making thumbnails and visuals for my videos. You need a paid version to actually export vector graphics, but it's worthy to be in this list for how easy and convenient it is to use. Next is Coolors. Coolors saves me time from worrying about color theory and gives me a color palette with just a press of a button. The free version is more than enough to help create good and cohesive color visuals. We all know that fonts have expression and communicates more than what is noticed in design. Google Fonts is not just a resource that provides a plethora of fonts, but it also provides a whole bunch of icons that you can export as vector graphics or just plain images. Then there's Game UI Database. It's a general resource that explains itself really. It's a web page showing the user interfaces of our favorite games, which we can use to reference off of and find inspirations for UI designs. And then ColorPick Eyedropper is a Mozilla extension that complements Game UI Database or any UI interface that you find inspiring online. I'm sure there are similar tools out there, but I use this eyedropper specifically to get the exact color I find to look good in designs. So I'm not a musician, but GarageBand allows me to create simple tracks using their free to use samples. It's nice too that it's available on all Apple devices, but that's also the downside itself. It's only available for Apple devices. And for this next one, Bosca Ceoil, I never actually published a game with a track created in this software, but it was a great tool to boost my confidence in music production. It's a great tool to introduce you in the world of music production in general, and has a quick built-in tutorial as well. Next is Audacity, and I'm literally using it right now. It's a tool that I use to create sound effects as well, and record my voice for devlogs and videos that I post on social media. When I find myself struggling to create sound effects, LabChirp is a tool that I go to generate custom sound effects for my games. First in this list is OBS, and it's what I use to record screen footage as well as what I'm planning on using for future live streams. But if you own a graphics card from Nvidia like I do, I use Nvidia ShadowPlay as well for recording screen footage as well as to capture something that happened on my screen 5 minutes before, because sometimes I just forget to press record when I'm trying to get something for footage. And then there's Shotcut that I use for editing my videos like my devlogs and game trailers. Side note, not sure why, but I must have a wrong setup in the settings because the quality result of my videos exported in it aren't the best. Overall though, it's still a worthy mention in this list. And as of recent, I've been resorting to using CapCut for editing most of my videos because it just makes it so easy. Just to provide you with more options, DaVinci Resolve is a proprietary software that I want to learn to edit videos with multiple audio channels. Shotcut is able to do that, but like I said, I'm having my own problems with it, and CapCut just doesn't have the support for this case at the moment. And this last one is for the mobile developers. I use AppMockUp Studio to quickly create beautiful preview images for my project's market listing. Now, when it comes to planning, Trello is my personal favorite to plan deeply and organize just about anything in my life. It's accessible on most platforms and through just the web. It's great for planning milestones as well as logging feedback, general bugs, and any features that creep in during development. And this next one is not free. It's GoodNotes 5, but this is a tool that is easily replaced with real paper and notebooks. It's just worth mentioning because it's my digital paper that I use for journaling and creating low fidelity prototypes of my games. Some say making these prototypes are a waste of time, but I think that they do have value in terms of giving me a simple visual to base my UI off of as I go. So as long as you keep it simple and not spend too much time on it, it becomes more than just quote-unquote distracted work. And then there's GitHub, which is what I currently use for version control of my game's source code and the whole project in general. But GitLab is something I have interested in moving to at some point when it starts to matter for my projects because it is free and open source. And with programming, Visual Studio Code, not Visual Studio, is my IDE of choice. I love that it just simplifies everything and allows for customization to program anything in most languages rather than having multiple different IDEs for different languages. Last but not least, I currently use Unity, but my future games will be made in free and open source game engines like Godot. I was able to really dive into this engine during the Unity fiasco, and I know that it will be more than enough for me to continue making games. Okay, now I'm going to share with you why I push free and open source software so much. My introduction to start making games was through a proprietary engine called Unity, and I feel like my journey serves as a pretty good example as to why decisions matter when it comes to choosing FOSS over a proprietary engine, because Unity for me was a blessing and a mistake. And right now the company's receiving a lot of deserved heat, but I want to give them their flowers, and I had to give them their flowers because I feel like Unity had really set up a high standard in the game industry, being one of the first game engines to come out there for free. And I really thank them really for making entry into the game development world so easy for me as well as others. You know, there's a reason as to why there's so many shit games that come out of the game engine, and that's just because Unity does a really good job at making it easy for people to start creating games, whether they're experienced or not. But on the other hand, my mistake was actually getting comfortable developing games in the engine itself and actually releasing games into the market under the Unity umbrella. And I say that because I really don't own those games. Unity does. They can always just change their terms as they've recently done and really just control me as well as my games. Of course, I don't like that idea. As I've said in my devlog, one of my previous devlogs, I'm not even close from triggering the fees associated with the terms, but what am I doing if I didn't believe that my Unity games will hit the threshold someday? I just don't have peace of mind and maximum ownership. But due to the backfire that this Unity situation caused, the terms had been dialed down by a lot to the point that I'm at least comfortable with finishing my current project in the engine without having to start from zero in Godot. A big thank you goes out to the big industry players that spoke out for smaller devs like me. Going full circle though, the main lesson here is that proprietary software ultimately has the control. You know, there's enough content out there about the whole Unity situation for me to go over it, but there's a lot to be said about similar proprietary game engines that are out there as well, such as Unreal. They can always just test the waters as well. And as someone who makes games, this is where using FOSS matters. Anyway, that's it for this one. Subscribe, like, and do let me know down in the comments if there are any other open source software that I'm missing out on. And special thank you shout out to the following ongoing generous supporters of my work, making a difference in the world and mine.